Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to find out which pet snake is right for you. So let's get started. Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about pet snakes. Whether you've already had one before or this is going to be your first one, we're going to go over everything from different types of species, different kind of setups and enclosures, and what would end up being better for you and your lifestyle. So really the most simple thing is how much space do you have? All different reptiles take up all different amounts of space. I'll show you a bunch of different clips and videos throughout this. If you want a super large snake and you're from somewhere where larger snakes are legal, New York they are not, but if you wanted something like a reticulated python or a Burmese python, you want something that's super massive and a huge snake, do you have the space for it? Because this is not a type of animal you could just put in a very small enclosure and just hope that it stays small or feed it less. This is an animal that will need basically a room, depending on what species you purchase. Even something that's normally sold in pet stores, like let's say a boa constrictor or red-tailed boa, they can actually get up to 10-12 feet. Most will not, but they can. So you have to have an enclosure that's 6 or 8 feet long by 2 feet by 2 feet. That takes up as much space as a couch. And if you really want to give that animal a lot of space, if it's 12 foot long, you're going to need something like an 8 foot long cage. Like if you have a tegu, it takes up an 8 by 4 by 4 space. That's half of a normal bedroom. You have to know what size room, what kind of space you have. These type of animals can't really live in your basement unless it's incredibly warm and you actually have proper setup and care for it. So generally you're going to have it in normally the main area of the house, somewhere that's not too cold, somewhere that's not incredibly hot because they need a hot and a cold spot, and you need actual space for this enclosure. A couple of different options would be, like I said, a very, very large snake that would need almost a room, like a reticulated python, Burmese python. These things need 8 foot long cages. Or you can get something that needs a little bit less space, maybe like a Dumer's boa or a red-tailed boa. They need something that's equivalent to probably a 6 by 2 by 2, depending on the species. You might be able to get away with something a little smaller if it's, for example, a male, because males stay smaller in, for example, boas. You need to make sure you have enough space for whatever type of snake you are going to pick out. Let's say you want something a little bit on the smaller side. You could get something very small, like a hognose. A hognose stays very small. It's not going to be something that's going to take up a bunch of space, and it's still a cool little snake. A lot of colubrids, like corn snakes, milk snakes, all of these types of snakes definitely stay on the smaller side. They can get very long, like a 6 foot long corn snake is not unheard of, but they're going to stay very thin. They don't need a humongous cage. They could get away with something like a 3 by 2 by 1. Even a ball python, if not a giant female, can live in a 3 by 2 by 1. So if you have size restrictions and you want a larger type of snake, like you are dead set on something big like a boa, why don't you get a male? Because that's going to stay on the smaller side, generally. Another big thing is what type of personality do you want in your snake? I really like ball pythons. Some people call them pet rocks, but they can be aggressive, especially when they're hungry or it's breeding season or they think I have food for them. If I open up their enclosure, sometimes they will lunge right out at me. It's perfectly okay. They are still wild animals. They don't know if I have food or not, so they want to get it as fast as they can because they're hungry. If you are living alone and you're only about 100 pounds and you really, really want something huge like a reticulated python, that's probably not the best choice for you just because that is such a large animal. Technically, it can be dangerous. No matter how much you think that snake loves you, if it's hungry or you smell like a rat or a rabbit or whatever you feed it, and you're a very small person, you're home completely alone, and you have an 18 foot long snake, that could be a dangerous situation. You always want to be safe with these because no matter what species you pick, they are still wild animals. What type of food are you willing to feed these? A lot of smaller snakes can get away with frozen thawed, very small mice for their entire life. Like again, a hognose, corn snake, all that type of stuff never gets larger than a mouse. So you could have your own little breeding colony of mice, or you could have frozen thawed mice for most of these. A lot of colubrids are very good at eating, or even boas. They're known for being garbage disposals. They will eat all the time. You shouldn't feed them all the time, but they're known for always accepting food when given to them. If you're someone who would never feed a live rodent to a snake, you probably shouldn't get a ball python. They are known for being picky eaters, and they are known for sometimes needing live. So don't get an animal that you're not going to be able to feed. Depending on the different species, it's going to depend on what type of heat, humidity, and really what type of setup is going to go on in that enclosure. If you want something that's very easy, very basic, I almost always point people in the direction of colubrids or corn snakes. They can normally handle fluctuations in their heat and humidity to a certain extent. But other species can be very specific when it comes to their needs. If you don't have the perfect heat and humidity, that animal stops eating, and now you have an animal that is not thriving. Let's say you've always wanted something like a green tree boa just because you like the way they look. You need to do a lot of research. Just because they look cool doesn't mean they're going to work for your house. It's like rainbow boas need it actually a lot cooler than almost every other species, for example, that I keep, and that's why I can't have them, because my reptile room is actually too warm. Some snakes look super awesome, like let's say a green tree boa or a rainbow boa, but both of them need very specific types of care. They both need certain enclosure setups. They both need certain humidity levels, certain types of food. You have to make sure whatever species, whether it's something you just want because it looks a certain way. For example, green tree boas are not known for being very well handled. They are known for being on the aggressive side, but they are gorgeous and beautiful display animals. But they could very easily bite you. If you're someone who has kids or someone who doesn't want to deal with something that's on the feisty side, whether they look really awesome or not, that might not be the best for you. Or if you don't want to be able to mist down an enclosure all the time, a rainbow boa probably isn't the best because they need certain humidity levels. They're a pretty specific type of animal. The only thing I'll give it to for pet stores is generally the reptiles that they have are easier to care for reptiles. That is not always. That is not for all reptiles in pet stores, but generally the animals that they have in there, whether they're caring for them properly or not, are known for being easier types of reptiles. That doesn't mean that that's still an easy reptile. Just because it's easier to take care of, it's easier to take care of a ball python than an emerald tree boa, doesn't mean a ball python is easy. No matter what type of snake you get, there always is a chance that it can bite you. If you are somewhere where you're allowed to buy a king cobra legally, I would not recommend it unless you are an experienced keeper. No matter how cool, how awesome that rattlesnake in that cage looks, that is not something you should have, especially as a new reptile owner. Whatever snake that you end up thinking you really are going to want, take time, do the research, and find out more info about it. Because there's been times when I've thought, wow, this type of reptile sounds awesome. I would really enjoy keeping that. Then you start reading about the care, and it doesn't fit with me and my lifestyle. It doesn't fit with the reptile room I already have. Everything in this room can consist with the same moderate temperatures. I heat this room to 80 degrees. Because it is so warm, it is not the best place for certain snakes. One of the biggest things though is making sure you have enough size. If you just go to a Florida pet store and you get a snake that looks pretty cool and it turns out to be a retic that can get incredibly large, it's a humongous enclosure, make sure you do your research. If you're at a pet store or a reptile show, make sure you are confident in that animal, make sure you can actually talk to the person. Just go sit down and do 20 minutes of watching videos before actually purchasing that animal, because all snakes can bite you. All snakes grow to different sizes. They all need different heat, humidity, enclosures, types of bedding. All that kind of stuff is going to depend on what you are looking for. If you're just looking for a really cool snake, you just want to sit there and hold it, I probably recommend a male ball python. But if you are absolutely against feeding anything live, I'd probably go with a male corn snake. But again, both of them can bite you, and it's all not only the species, but different snakes. My first ever corn snake was the best animal ever. He would just sit there, relax, was the most chill snake ever. The female corn snake I have right now, she wants nothing to do with me, wants to eat me, and I've had her since she was born. It all depends not only on the species, but the specific animal themselves. And don't just believe because you go, for example, to a reptile show and you hold this cute little snake or a bigger snake or anything and think that that's the personality that that snake has. If you are going to hold a snake at a reptile show, it is cold. Even if they have heat on it, it is colder than what it should be. It's nervous, it's in a new environment. It might be the most relaxed snake ever. You have to know. When you get it home, you warm it up, it's in the proper enclosure. It might be striking at you, hissing at you, trying to kill you through that cage just because it's hungry, it's scared, it's nervous. You have to know that no matter what, these are wild animals. They can be amazing pets. If you have kids and they're being supervised while they're holding the reptiles, while they're caring for them, they can be awesome pets because most of these only have to eat once every week, every 2 weeks. As long as they have fresh water and their enclosure is the proper setup, can be super easy pets that can live 15, 20, 30, 40 years long. So that's a very long-term thing. There are so many different types of snakes out there. I would highly recommend sitting down, deciding first what size would work for you, because if you cannot fit anything larger than, let's say, a 4-foot cage, that's a perfect place to start looking at the minimum cage requirements for different types of snakes and then figuring out what you like. A friend of mine has boas, and I think he's crazy because they're always trying to bite him. He loves their attitude. He loves their personalities. I personally enjoy my ball pythons. I love the color patterns. I love their personalities. I love being able to see them and know what they're almost thinking because I'm so used to being around them and I've spent so much time with them. One of my new growing favorites is called a Dumerils boa. This is a Dumerils. It's pretty much a ball python personality in a giant boa's body. These are very young Dumerils. They can get almost as large as a normal boa constrictor, but they can be very calm, but they need a larger enclosure. No matter what snake you choose, just make sure it's something that you are ready for a commitment. Like I said, that a lot of these species can live decades. So make sure it's something you're happy with, your family's happy with, and just have fun with it. Make sure you're doing the proper care, and snakes can be amazing pets. But that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do videos every Wednesday, and we'll see you next Wednesday.